Hello everyone. Have you been wanting to sync your Obsidian tasks with a calendar? Well, Morgen has an application and an actual integration with Obsidian now. It's in beta, and I'm going to go ahead and get into it and take a look and see how this works, functions, the pros and cons, yeah, the whole nine. Let's just go ahead and set it up and start doing some things and see what works, what does not. All right, the first thing is going to be going into Obsidian and installing the Tasks plugin. I already have it installed here. We have the Tasks plugin here. If you go to the community, just type task in and you can do that. And then you want to also enable task emoji format here. These are two requirements for the Morgen integration to work here. And then we're going to assign an actual identifier here so it doesn't pick all of the notes that I have, this particular formatting in, where it could be a checklist, some things could be a task. I have a mix of them, but anything that's actually a task, I usually tag it with the hashtag task. I'm going to use to do in this one so it doesn't conflict with my other tasks that are in my environment, so that we can do some testing here. Now let's go over into Morgen and we will see what we need to do over here. If we go into the integrations, now I already have the Obsidian one there, but if you scroll down in this list, you'll see local integrations and you'll have one that's Obsidian. Now this local integrations does have some context to it, where this means that this integration only runs locally on this particular machine, and we'll kind of see why. And you can see through, because with my setup here, the reason why is because there's an actual link to a file path, and this here may not be on other systems. So when you set this up, this will only be set up on this particular machine, so this integration will only work on this particular machine. Now there are a few things that we go through here. You can see I already have the latest version. There is the note inclusion default. So right now I have include notes by default. You can exclude notes by default. I have no excluded files, but if there's any directories and things that you want to have excluded, or files you want excluded in this particular area, then you can exclude specific files. If you want to exclude any or ignore directories here, you can add those in there. And I have here my template folder is being ignored in this particular setup. You can exclude old notes, so import tasks from all notes is set up here, but you can go in here and say only import from the last 30 days, so you do get some options there. Now if we go down to task inclusion, we can see that I do have set an actual identifier here, hashtag to do. So when it sees this particular hashtag, it will include these and bring those in. If you don't have any, then it will select all the tasks or to-dos that are in there that are set up in that markdown checklist format and pull them in. And then you have the automatic ID insertion here. So add IDs to imported tasks, or you can come in here and you can say only import tasks with existing IDs. Now one other thing we need to do is go into Obsidian and we want to add the Morgen plugin. And if we go over here, we will see community. You can actually browse and type this one in. If we do Morgen, we got Morgen tasks there. I already have it installed. I'm going to go into the options, and one thing that you can come in here and configure is either showing the ID that's being created by the plugin, to make sure you have unique tasks or to-dos in there, and it knows what it's working with. You can hide completely, or you can replace with an emoji. I'll flip through these as we kind of go along here, just to show you what these look like in Obsidian. Now once this Morgen plugin is set up, the task plugin is set up, Then we can come in here into Obsidian, and we can simply just make a task. And this particular plugin is pretty nice because you can put your task in any note within the vault. So if you haven't excluded those folders or files, then they will show up on the other end. Now if I come in here and let's create task 1, and then we'll do a task 2 in here, and task 3 as examples. If we go over in Morgen, we'll see that there's nothing over here, and that's because we still need to put the hashtag on here to identify that this is one for syncing with Morgen. And if we come over here now, we can see that that pops in, and we have a task over here that we can work with in Morgen. Now we can come over here and we can add another one, and let's go ahead and do this. And if we come over here again, I have noticed that you have to click into Morgen, into this actual integration, to see this pop in. I've had both windows open at the same time, and until I actually clicked this one to be in the view, they did not update while just sitting open in the background. So if you're having both the windows open, you don't see it kind of pop up, just click on the window here in this area and it should sync up pretty quickly. Now we can also see that in Obsidian we have these icons next to the actual task, and these are controlled by that setting in the Morgen plugin. If we go into Morgen task, I have right now replaced with an emoji. If I go and say hide completely, we'll see what that looks like. There's nothing there. I kind of like having some kind of identifier there just to make sure that, okay, it is syncing. But you can also come in here and you can just show the ID. So if we show ID, we'll see this string that goes here. Now this is a little bit too much, so I will typically just choose to replace with an emoji and have that show up there. Now let's see how this works over in Morgen here when we play around with it a little bit and do things that we typically would want to do or expect to just to actually work. Now one is going to be setting dates. So you can come over here and you can set a due date. Let's go ahead and set this one for today. And if I set that for today and then I click over here, we'll see that this was set for today, and then it actually shows up here in the calendar for today. Now another thing we would want to do in this particular type of app is we probably want to be able to at least move these things around a bit, right? So if I was to say, you know what, I'm not going to get to this today, let me move this here to tomorrow, and it quickly updates the date over in Obsidian. So the syncing does work here with the dates. Now this one here, let's go ahead and update that and update this one in a different way. So you'd also expect from this particular integration you to be able to add the date from the Morgen side as well. So if we come over to Morgen, we have task 2, and if I come into task 2 and I move it to the date, we can see that it put it up there, but something else kind of happened here. I'm not sure why this thing here triggered. Another event showed up. So there was another task that I created before that I was messing around with, just showed up in here for whatever reason. Let's go ahead and delete that one, and we'll see that this task looks a lot different from this one here. Now over here you have a little checkbox, and over here you do not. We also, if we just click back over into Obsidian, we did not get a date over here as well. So the plugin, the way it works is mainly for you to add dates and things and kind of manage it over in the Obsidian world, and then it will update over in Morgen. Not really for you to kind of manipulate dates and time from the Morgen side. Now you can do that. The only thing is that, remember I said that these two stay in sync. If this does not work, or the syncing does not sync from Morgen back to Obsidian when you're manipulating the date and time on it. So that's just the kind of the weird thing here. Unless you've started that date on the Obsidian side, it does not seem to work well, or at all, I should say, like in this scenario, where that date will just populate over in Obsidian world. So like if I take this and I move it to another date, this is not updated at all. Now I wonder what happens if I come in here and I put a due date. So let's say to date, right now that's set for tomorrow. I'll go ahead and update that, and we will see if that changes anything here. Alright, so now we can see what happened here is that it created a task 2, but the previous task 2 that it created is still here on the calendar. So it gets a little funky depending on where you're trying to set your date on the calendar. It does things that it probably shouldn't be doing, and I would say that this is a bug and this is not intentional, but I think some of the other plugins or integrations works in a similar way. So when you're using this plugin, just be aware that if you need to set up dates for these things, you need to set them up on the Obsidian side. And I think it should be different than the way it is now. I really think that they should let you set the dates from the calendar side as well, and everything works just the same, because 9 times out of 10 I want this to go to my calendar app, because I don't know what's on my calendar while I'm in Obsidian. So trying to set up the dates here doesn't really make this process as efficient, unless I'm just putting in today because I know that the integration works this way. So knowing this, I could use this plugin, set all of these to today, the ones that that I've set, or if I have some general knowledge of what day they should be on, then I can set those, but then go into Morgen and manipulate them from there. Now there's also another thing that you may want to do here is, let's take the task 2 here that is set up from putting the date over in Obsidian, and let's actually put that down into the time, and we can see that that's not working now. Let's go over here and see why does it not work. So not really sure why this does not let you put it in a time slot. If I come over here to task 1, you can see it lets me put it in a time slot, but now it has that check box on it where you can come in here and you can mark it complete. Now again, the way this is working is a bit buggy in my opinion, because now I have 2 tasks on my calendar for 1 task that's in Obsidian. So this is not really keeping it in sync, and it's not really working intuitively the way I would expect it to work as a integration, especially a 2-way integration. Now we can come in here, and now that we have a task in there, we can even come in here and we can block this time off for this particular task if we wanted to in Obsidian. The time is not showing over in the Obsidian side as well, so that's another thing that's not syncing. If I was to come here, let's see if I can double click on here. So it says block on calendar. This event is rendering in Morgen as due date. Does not block on calendar. So if I come in there and I block that on the calendar, that is, here we go again, it created another task, and this task I'm assuming will show on my calendar. I'll have to open up my calendar and let's see what that looks like. Okay, so now I have my calendar app open and we can see these on the calendar, and both of them actually match up as far as having both tasks on there. But now this thing is not the way that I would expect this to happen. So I don't see the task 1 up in the all day view, and I do have 2 tasks, one from here and one here. Now this has the Obsidian logo on it. I'm not seeing the Obsidian logo on this task, but I wonder, okay, there it is. It's just because this here is a little bit cramped that it's not showing. And I do not have the task 2 the way it shows here. So I only have one of those showing in this list. So if I move this one, let's say I move this one here, will this show up on the calendar? Now this might take a while for it to sync to the calendar. And there it is. Okay, so now we have that there. But what happened was the top one is also not showing here. So just one of them is showing there. And I guess that's similar to what the way it's showing here for both of these tasks. So this top level one is not showing up on the calendar the way it does here, but the ones that are set with a time are showing on the calendar. So that's pretty interesting. I wonder if I was to change the time here, if that would get reflected back. Let's refresh, and it does. Okay, so this is, the way it's working is a little bit odd and a little confusing to get used to, especially if you might switch your calendar app and you look at your calendar. But even looking at the one that comes with Morgen here, the actual Morgen calendar, this is a little confusing where you have a all day task, and then you have a separate one if you set up a time. So let me change this back to week. So very interesting. And as I mentioned, if you change or add these ones here with the times do not show up to here. And the only time you get this to update is if you update the date on this side, and then these will actually update. So let me see, if I move that one, we can see that that worked. If I move them both to Saturday, they update over here. Now there's these other task items on my calendar that, I don't know, it is just a little bit confusing here. So if I would delete or unschedule this one, let's unschedule that one, and let's unschedule that one. Alright, so we're back down to just 2 tasks. Move this one to today, move that one to tomorrow, show up. If I was to come here and do to do over here, we should get a new one here that shows up. Task 3, let me click here, task 3. Now if I come over here and I mark this for today, you can see that that goes up here at the top. And how do I, so if I put this down here, so this does not give it, so again, as I mentioned before, you don't get an actual date over here in Obsidian when you don't put the date over here on the Obsidian side. So I have to come over here, set the Obsidian side. Let's move that to today. All right. What will happen is I now get a task 3, or at least that's what I'm expecting now after seeing the way the other ones worked. A task 3 should pop up over here, and it did. So we can see now a task 3 is there. and I can move that task 3 around, and that actually updates. But I still have this other task that's associated with this that is just lingering here on the calendar. So I will take that off. If I come here and I want to block off time, it creates a new one, and then from there you can kind of move this around. So in order of operations here, when you're creating your task, make sure you put a date on it over here on the Obsidian side first, and then come over into the Morgen application, into the Obsidian integration, and then you can start moving things around as you see fit. Okay, so that's going to be it for this video. It's kind of a little deep dive into the Morgen Obsidian integration, and this is somewhat of a first look. I did give it a quick glance over previously and walk through, but this is the first time I'm actually doing a bunch of back and forth and using it as if I would use it as, you know, just a normal consumer of the product. And you can see what I saw from my initial dealings with the product is that I think there could be some refinements, but now that I know how it works, I can easily kind of get in here, create tasks in Obsidian, knowing that I can put them on the calendar and block off times, but I'm going to have these, say, parent task items on the calendar. That is what I need to use in order to change the dates. Alright, so that's going to be it for this video. If you like the content, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, and until the next time, have a nice day.